Hey guys, Dan here.
and Frank Godzilla, and then today we're joined by Stephen Prince of Monster Matador, creator, writer. Let's let him introduce himself here.
All right. Like I said, I'm the creator and writer of Monster Matador. It's about a matador who fights kaiju to make a world for his better daughter, to make a better world for his daughter. And we're currently on the tail end of our latest miniseries, Once Upon Some Monsters in Mexico. I'm having a lot of trouble speaking today. And just some background on me. I used to work in the toy industry. I used to develop little uh, toys called Puppy in My Pocket, thing called Stink Blasters and Power Bugs, and I would develop toys and also develop some of them for animation. So
That's really cool. I actually vaguely remember the name Puppy in My Pocket.
yeah,
I
yeah, it keeps coming back. It's been around for like 30 years, and it
Wow.
keeps getting reintroduced. So
That's really cool. And
yeah,
now you're doing comics. That's
yeah. Now
that's
I'm doing
that's
comics. Yeah,
great.
yeah.
What brought you to that? Is it just something that you always wanted to do, or are you just a big fan?
I've always done them ever since I was a kid. I used to do like zines back when I was in college. I used to do my own like mini comics, and I basically started doing comics again when I lost my job making toys
Oh
because
no.
they kind of went out of business. So and it was just something to do, and I had done a comic strip called Unemployed Ant, which is about an ant that lost his job,
Oh god. All
and
right.
then I did this like crazy science fiction thing, and then I've had Monster Matador for a while. I created this thing like it was like 2007 or 2008,
Yeah.
and I just didn't know what to do with it. The industry was very different at the time. There's no Kickstarter. It wasn't like now where you can just find people online and put stuff together. So I always felt it was kind of a special idea, and I kind of put it in my back pocket, waiting for the right time. And around 2014, I started to develop it more seriously. And as an exercise, I started drawing it as a comic. And my intent was only to do like, 2 or 3 issues just to get a feel for the character, the world, and everything like that. And then basically launch what we have now, which is the color book with an artist that can actually draw, as opposed to myself. And what happened was I'd gotten married and we had kids. And like most people before I had kids, I thought, nothing is going to change, right?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, everything changed. And, but I kept doing it just as something to do because I had like, anytime I had like an hour or spare something, I would just keep doing it. And eventually I wound up doing about 12 issues, which is nuts.
Wow. Yeah, and I was just rereading the volume preparing for this, and I
Yeah.
was reading like the your intro to that. Like
Hmm.
you said, that you started around 2007, and you had the whole 12 issue plan. But now the way like you've built this world, I'm like you
Yeah.
could just go on
Yeah.
forever. It
Yeah.
seems
Yeah.
like.
It's interesting that, I mean, I, I, I'll probably give them away at some point in one of these Kickstarters. But those 12 issues, what's interesting is that it kind of laid the foundation for everything. And when Fabio came on board and we were doing the new book, I kind of didn't want to go back to the beginning again. So that's why we started with Tango of the Matadors, which is kind of a soft reboot of the book, because the series I did was pretty simplistic. But a lot of the characters that you're seeing now are from those older issues. And I think how it wound up working out positively and as a strength is that, when we started Tango, the character, I think, for people felt three dimensional, and it felt like that world existed because it felt like there was a history behind it, which there was. So it kind of worked out.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah,
because in that first series, they kind of like he's already established. People
right.
know who Ramon is, the Monster Matador,
Yeah.
and he's just like almost like he's like a legend at that
Yeah. Yeah.
point.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and he's got like you said, he in that first series, who who was the Blue Matador right now? I'm losing his
Oh,
name.
Miguel.
Miguel. Yes, he was
Yeah,
the other Matador.
yeah,
Uh, Absolutely. When I read it from beginning forward. I came
Yeah.
on with
hmm
the first issue of Once Upon Some Monsters in Mexico, but
right.
I didn't read it until I had completed Volume One in Afropocalypse,
Okay.
and I was like, "How did I not know about this series?" I still get mad at myself. I'm like, "How did it take me so long to get into this?"
Yeah,
And I think it might have been Blake from Territory shared it out, and
yeah, that's a great book.
I was like, where has this been the whole time? How did I
Yeah,
not see this?
it's funny, I mean, you guys back Kickstarter, and you see me probably sending
Oh,
messages
yeah,
after message, and Twitter and everything. And the crazy thing is, like, as much as I send out, like, it, like, so many people just don't see it. So it's like this constant barrage you have to do.
yeah,
And we keep getting new people, and who are picking it up, who are like, you were like, wait a minute, how has this been going on for 4 years?
yeah,
And I never heard about it. And after every campaign, without fail, I always get people like, why, why didn't I know this was going on? Or I didn't.
yeah,
Even people that have backed before that technically are supposed to be getting these messages in their inbox. So much goes to spam, so much gets buried
yeah,
by algorithms. But you mentioned Blake and Territory, and what's been nice about Kickstarter is that there are other creators that we found each other who do kind of kaiju themed books or similar themed books, and we've been very successful in turning on our audience,
yeah.
to those books. So it's definitely like a team effort.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's really been a pretty great community. I
Mhm.
mean, we started doing this just a couple of years ago. I
Yeah,
mean, I've been into it forever, and it's something that I wish we had started much earlier, especially during
right.
COVID. Would have been the perfect
Yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
And like I was like home, and I was thinking about doing it. He had just started getting Dan had just started getting back into the movies and everything too,
Okay.
Yeah.
and was collecting everything. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should do a show with him. And then he, like, at the end of it, like right before I'm having a kid, he's having a kid.
You're right.
Uh,
Yeah.
he's like, you want to do this? And I was like, yeah, we could do it. And
Yeah,
then
we'll have a
just
bunch of free time. We're gonna have
Yeah,
these
yeah,
kids.
exactly right.
yeah, no,
I'm not the only one, man.
yeah, we've had several hiatuses.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
my favorite thing I remember right before my son was born, it was like I remember I was like packing up for the hospital, like packed the Nintendo Switch, and my wife was like,
Yeah, what are you gonna do with
you're packing that? And I was like, yeah, well, yeah, I'm like, you're gonna be doing like
that? Right?
I'm not gonna have anything to do. Like you're gonna like and then I'm like, you're gonna be feeding the baby. Like I can't I'm like, so I'm just
But
gonna
you're
be
not
next to
supposed to
you
say that out loud.
supporting. And then she's like, yeah, we'll see how it plays out. I haven't played a video game in over 2 years.
Yeah,
From
yeah,
he
no,
since when he came out to now, I haven't touched it.
yeah,
yeah, packing it was the last time he touched
Yes,
it.
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
I miss video games. But it's
Yeah,
funny because COVID, I think, rekindled for a lot of people, and even for me, like our interest in things that we had kind of
yeah,
lost touch with because of life or whatever. So and a lot, so it's really cool to
yeah.
see that, because I think that's pretty true for a lot of people. So
It was a big boom. I mean, just the so many different series going on. I mean, I always say one of the things I always say whenever I review a Kickstarter is to follow the creator's Kickstarter page so you could see what they're backing, and they'll
hmm
put you onto things. You are a big creator, but you have to be one of the biggest Kickstarter supporters I've ever seen. I get like a notification or like two or three a day from you, like
Oh,
Stephen
really?
Prince is back this, he's
Oh,
back
jeez.
this, so I can see everything that you back. And not a
Yeah.
lot of people know about that feature on Kickstarter,
Oh,
and
I
I
didn't. I
always
didn't know
recommend
that.
doing
Yeah.
that. Yeah, if you could follow a creator, so you not only see when their next campaign goes live, you see what they support and
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And I get like dings from you all day. I'm like, man, I'm like, this guy is
It's
like an
funny. Yeah.
MVP supporter.
There are periods I think when just a lot of people are dropping, but it's also I have a lot of friends that are creators, and
Yeah,
I want to support them and give them a boost, and we all
absolutely.
like the kaiju stuff. It's just a giant community, and it's
Yeah.
really cool how everybody's just helping each other out because really like you guys sharing our stuff and other people Kaiju United has been really great.
Oh yeah.
Jacob's really great.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
um, and people also like to hear it from other people, like
Yeah.
I can tell you how awesome Monster Matador all day long is, but when you tell someone, hey, this is worth checking out, that
Yeah.
so it's
No. No,
yeah,
it's important. It's like it's a community. It's uh, for the most part, it's a very friendly community.
yeah,
I mean, we always see things people say some negative stuff about whatever, but
right.
overall, everybody in the community, it's pretty tight knit. Everyone's really
Hmm.
cool to each other. We have not experienced any bad interactions yet,
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
luckily.
luckily.
yeah.
But yeah, everyone's really great to each other. Like you said, we love the comic, so we should start talking about the comic more, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
before we get, I'll tell you what's interesting because I think when you found out about it was when I first kind of had a light bulb in my head, thinking like, huh, there must be kaiju groups out there that are specific to kaiju, and it's like the most obvious thing, but what I realized with a lot of this stuff is a lot of kaiju fans don't realize that there are kaiju comics, right?
No,
So that
there's
there's a
not a
whole
lot of kaiju comic groups and everything out
yeah,
there.
or outside of Godzilla comics, that there's like
Yeah,
a whole a whole bunch of stuff, and so um, yeah,
yeah, it's important. That's why it's important to spread the word. I mean,
yeah,
I try to blast out like everything I can on like different Facebook groups. I mean, social
yeah, yeah.
media
No, I appreciate
is
it. Yeah,
exhausting. It's a chore, but
yeah,
it's a good way to share out our stuff, to share out everybody else's stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, there should be more kaiju comic groups or something out there. Right now, I'm only literally in one kaiju group on Facebook for comics. That's
Yeah,
all
I
there
saw that one.
is.
Yeah, there's the one.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well,
kaiju
if you've
comic
got
network.
time,
No, I've believe me, I've thought about making like a Facebook group or something, but I'm like, then I gotta moderate all
no,
these
no, I know.
things.
Yeah,
I don't want to be in charge of social
yeah, yeah, yeah,
people in social media groups. That's when you start encountering the bad parts of the fandom there sometimes.
yeah. All right.
But like I said, sometimes good parts. Um, yeah, I mean, what is this gonna be? The like
Ninth.
ninth
This
issue.
is the ninth Kickstarter, and it's technically the ninth issue because Afropocalypse was a double, like it was triple sized, but yeah.
Yeah, it was when you put that out. Was that like a graphic novel? I mean, I
Um,
like I said, I came on with volume one. Was that just a like a one shot? What
yeah.
did you
So
consider that at the time?
I I hate running Kickstarter.
You're
It
great at it, though. That's the thing.
it's I know, but it's so much work. So I kind of wanted to see whether we could pull off like singles like that, one shots, um, and the response was great, but it was just too much work
Yeah,
for that. What gets tricky, okay, so Kickstarter has sort of a default pricing structure almost, right? Like a single issue is about $8 to $12. If you're doing 48 pages, you're looking at 18 to $20. Uh, Afropocalypse was 64 pages or something like that, and we sold it for 20, which was fine, but it should really
probably
have
going a
been
little
a
higher.
little more. But when you're getting into like 25, 30, now you're getting into trade paperback territory, and trade paperback you're looking at 120 pages or whatever. So it just
Yeah,
it was, and for me
it was
too, like,
somewhere in the middle. Yeah,
yeah, I'm always trying to, like, everyone's always like, dude, you should charge more. I'm like, I know, but I really I try to keep the costs down as much as I can because I know there's a lot of projects out there, and I ultimately I want people to read the book, and I don't want them to have to second guess of like, this is too expensive or whatever. So it just with the 64 pages, it was just too much. It was just too and
Yeah, I
so yeah,
remember.
that's
I remember when I was reading Volume One and I got to that, and I was just like,
mhm.
"This is going on a really, really long time." I was like, "When's like the next? Like, when's the next issue going to be? When's this issue end?" And I'm like, "Oh, it's just one big thing." I didn't
Yeah,
realize that when I
yeah,
got
yeah.
to it
It
in the book.
yeah. There's a natural split down the middle because it was written as two issues, but it flows smoothly. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
but yeah, it was a big one. That one was funny because Fabio works with another writer, Rylan Grant, who does a book
yes,
called The Jump. He just launched The Breach today.
yes. I saw
Um,
that. Yes,
Rylan's a good friend. He's the one who introduced me to Fabio. And he puts out fantastic books, really smart books. And The Jump is a very cerebral book. It's a really for Fabio, it's a very tough book to draw. There's and he was just like I think he had just done the second issue, and it took a lot out of him. So Afropocalypse, that book is basically just like literally balls to the wall action. It's like we hit the ground running and go right.
yeah,
And that was I don't think Fabio's ever drawn a book so fast. Just like he just needed something. It was kind of like cathartic for him. It was just something to just kind of like let loose. Um, so
I
that's
love
kind of
the
yeah.
I love the aesthetic of Afropocalypse. I was telling
Hmm.
Dan when he was doing the reread, I'm like, that's one of my favorite ones. Dan liked Tango of Matadors,
Yeah, yeah,
but I mean, I
Yeah.
just kind of like them all. But there's just something about Afropocalypse, like the aesthetic. It just reminds me just of like 80s, 90s
yeah.
action movie
It's
horror.
my love. Yeah,
Just yeah,
it's my love letter to Predator.
yeah, that's
I
exactly.
mean,
It's like
that's yeah.
Predator, and then just the whole cast of just different
Yep.
characters, and you're pulling in like all the best hunters from all
Yeah.
over the world.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
the aftermath of that, you're like, oh well, what happens to that country's best hunters now? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. There's I mean, we'll see down the line.
yeah,
There is a sequel that I have in mind.
really,
Oh,
all right,
nice.
Yeah, yeah. Because now what was nice about that book is that it kind of opened up the world a lot. So now you kind of
yes, it
are like,
did,
okay, there is more than just there are other people that are inspired by him that are fighting monsters, and that's what we're going to be starting to explore and open up into after these storylines and what
yeah.
happens
I
next.
mean, yeah, this Once Upon Some Monsters in Mexico story arc's been really,
Yeah,
really cool. I mean, you started off with the first two. We had the giant cockroach, we had
right.
the luchadors, and now you introduced us to Nacho Lobo in issue three.
Hmm.
He's like an enemy from the past, so this is some
Right.
more past lore that you have built up.
Yeah.
And like to me, this Nacho Lobo, me and Dan were lucky enough to read uh, most of issue four. I know it wasn't the final product yet, but I'm assuming we
I mean,
got
it's the whole
most of.
issue,
It's
but
the
it's
whole
just
issue,
yeah. But there's
but
just like color touches and
yeah.
tweaks that need to
Um,
be done.
to me, from what I've seen from issue three and four, he almost seems like the Joker to the Matador's Batman. Like he's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like chaos.
yeah.
And we've had some bad humans, but he seems like the first real like big human villain that we've seen in the
Hmm.
series so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Not Nacho. So again, it's this thing of when we first did Tango, right? We launched that when the pandemic. It literally launched that June. So like
Yeah.
I
Yeah. A
didn't
couple
know.
months in. Yeah.
We didn't know if there was going to be any more after that, or if there's going to be any more world. So Tango was really like if I've got one Matador story, if I've got one story that I'm going to be able to tell before the world goes, that's going to be it, right?
Yeah.
And then we had a little fun with Afropocalypse,
It,
and yeah, and we started to open up the world, and now Also, the other thing, I didn't want to do the thing where it's like, we're teasing the monster for 6 issues or whatever. Like,
Yes.
and I think why people, at least what I've gotten from shows and things like that, and people that I meet, like what they respond to right away is like, oh shit, this is like, it's a matador, he's fighting monsters, and it's like, boom, like he's doing it.
Yeah.
In these new arcs, like in Once Upon, we kind of I don't want to say we kind of slow things down a little. They're still fighting in
Yeah.
it and whatever, but now we're kind of like we're really kind of like laying down pieces and really
Yeah.
kind of like showing a little bit more of the world and the monsters, and how not just monsters but also how humans are reacting to that world. So you get someone like Nacho Lobo, who's like this pure evil, who as we'll see, he's looking to kind of like take over and do these other things, and well, we can tease this. In issue 4, we introduce our version of chupacabras,
Yes. Yes.
and I
The
posted a picture of that, and so they start off as like the kind of chupacabra looking dogs, and then he blows a whistle, and they grow into these giant, massive kaiju, right? And
yeah.
that's setting up some really crazy shit. But what's cool about that is now, like, you introduce this element where, okay, these are humans that have found a way to control monsters, right?
Yes.
So it just opens up more and more stories and more like paths
Yeah.
for the book to go.
And that's one of the things that I did notice about him in issue 3 is he had that monster in the arena that it was like a lizard thing. It reminded me
Yeah, yeah,
almost of a
yeah,
death claw from Fallout, but like a little more lizard like. And then
yeah.
that had to be, was that a Luke Skywalker
It
reference
was.
there? I was like, they killed him like the Ronco.
Yeah, yeah,
he threw a rock at the gate and crushed his skull.
yeah,
I was like, that's Star Wars right there.
yeah, yeah. So the guy, the pilot, the guy who was with him is, so it's from the Black and White series, and he's going to be in. We're bringing the Luchadors it'll be a one shot in the spring that follows up, because in issue 3 the Matador sends the Luchadors on a mission, right,
Oh,
Yeah.
to go get an army to help him fight Nacho Lobo.
wow.
And so the spinoff is going to be, it's a one shot, and they're going out to recruit this army, but they find um, a a kaiju that they have to fight, and that leads to them finding kind of like a hint as to the origin of where these kaiju come from. And
Wow.
my pitch on the Luchadors, the book is called Monstradors, and my pitch on that is kind of like Challengers of the Unknown meets Indiana Jones, you know,
Oh,
meets
Nice.
kaiju, like, with the X Files thrown in kind of stuff. So that's kind of like the tone of that book.
wow.
Um,
That's a nice spicy spoiler there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, not really spoiler. I mean,
It's
it's
not too
issue 3, so
spoilery,
not too spoilery.
but
But yeah, but
wow.
that's coming up, and we've got Puis Calzada is the artist. He's the official artist for Metallica for their tour
Oh,
this
nice.
Really?
summer. So he
Oh,
did all their posters, all their T-shirts. He did a book called Cult of Dracula for Source Point Press. He works a lot with Fangoria, does a lot of licensed horror stuff. So I'm really excited about that. That'll be
this
cool.
sounds. Oh boy.
Yeah. So it's there's a lot.
When
It's
you
all opening
first
up.
teased
Yeah.
this spinoff, I was like, oh, I really
Yeah.
want to see that. But now I'm like, oh, I really, really want to
Yeah.
see that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
Puis has a fun style. It's not like a typical horror style. It's kind of fun. So the tone of the book is a little more. It's a little more. It's a little. I don't want to say lighter, but he's a little more cartoony in how he draws.
All right.
So the humor comes out differently with Fabio. My original Fabio was not the original artist for the book. The original artist that I had in mind uh, couldn't do the book by the time we got around to it, and I wrote it for him, and it's a more kind of a cartoony style, more comic booky, And so the script has all this humor in it, and Fabio just played it straight the entire time. And rather than changing the script, I just kind of went with it, and it gives it this, this weird quirky thing because
Yeah,
everything is played so melodramatic and
yeah.
so like whatever. But it just adds to the
It's really gritty. It's
yeah
like a western meets monsters.
yeah. It's a telenovela, or
Yes.
that's kind of
Yeah, it's
so
very dramatic. And then I like when he does those panels where it's like just like the two color panels where
yeah.
you just get the two contrasts. You don't really get to see, like, that's probably one of my favorite things. And then even just like the opening scenes of Tango,
Hmm.
that bar scene really set up like there's something off about this Miguel guy.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, yeah,
just the way he was drawn
yeah,
was
yeah.
just like,
The body language that
yeah, it
he
was very like,
he's
oh, there's
really
something
great.
up with this guy.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Fabio's really good. I'm very 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 fortunate to have him. And again, after Tango, I didn't know if he'd be able to do
Keep
the book, if
going.
he'd want to do the book. But both him and Alex are colorists, who I should
Yeah.
mention, who's wonderful. They love the character, they love the book, so it's great because we've been doing it now for almost 5 years, I think 4 years.
Yeah. It's mind
And
blowing.
for an indie book, for an indie Kickstarter book, that's some pretty
It's very impressive.
good consistency. I'm glad we're going to be able to kind of tell this giant story together.
It's literally giant.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah, yeah.
it's yeah, no, it's been great. And then as far as I mean, you've been doing this for 5 years, but I feel like there was stuff in Tango that is still being developed in this
Hmm.
current series. How far ahead, like, did you have out to this current series planned? Because I felt like there was
There's
teases and stuff.
it's um, the writing process is very mysterious. I don't know. I
Yeah,
no, I have like
you have like a rough map, or is it just like
I have a
all in your
rough idea.
head?
Yeah, I mean, I have a rough idea of where it's going and what it is. And sometimes, I mean, it's true. Sometimes I say it's mysterious, but it's sometimes very subconscious where I'll write stuff, and then I'll be writing another, a few issues down the line, and I'll get to a point. I'll be like, oh, that's why I did that there.
Yeah,
You know, I'm not that smart. Some people do plan. I mean, but I have a general guideline of where it's going to go. Like when I did Tango, I had this idea of like, we're going to do 60 issues and blah, blah, blah. And then you do a Kickstarter and you realize, oh, well, no, that's going to be like, I'll be 100 by the time I get to that. So it was a matter of like, okay, how can I tell this story in a way that, um, uh, we can do it in a reasonable amount of time, but also like, it's one of the reasons I very purposely designed each series to be kind of like new reader friendly. A lot of people that back our campaigns, they'll back Once Upon Some Monsters, and they'll do the catch up for Once Upon Some Monsters, and then they'll go back and they'll read the first volume.
Yeah.
Which is nice because it can be intimidating when you're up to however wherever we are now, 8 issues or whatever um, to do all that. But I have a general guideline. The big story beats, I'll hit, but um, but the specifics of it is always very fluid, um, and uh, part of that is it's just a matter of just like you know is do I really have 6 years? Do I really want to tell this one story over 6 years because that's how long it's going to take to do it through Kickstarter? Or can I do it in X amount of issues where I can get it out? Um, and yeah, like I always knew. So I mean, you guys read issue 4. I don't want to spoil it, but
No. Yeah.
where it ends up was not the original plan for it to end up.
And let me
Um,
tell you guys, that is a massive cliffhanger for issue 4. I think that's the biggest cliffhanger of the whole series.
yeah, yeah, for
But
sure. Yeah.
but you do still you finish the story,
Hmm.
and I could totally see how the next arc will
Hmm.
pick up, and like you could pick that arc up as a new reader because you've done a great job with all 3 arcs where, like you said, you try to make it so that any new
Yeah,
reader could come in at any point in any story arc.
yeah. And the next arc does read like you can pick it up without reading anything, and because I can tell you that because I just wrote it. So like I said, um, but like there are things that just kind of like open up as you're telling the story because as a writer, I'm working with like themes or like things, specific things I want to say, and especially with you know with Adelita, who's his daughter, and that's a lot of the stuff that you see early on in those issues that really start to kind of come to the fore
Yeah.
in this new series, and yeah, I don't know. It's a
It,
weird it's a weird process. I mean,
in this, just from like the teases from
mhm,
the that end of volume 1 where with she's training to now,
yeah,
just the growth in this story arc alone for Adelita is
mhm,
massive.
yeah,
And I I don't know if that covers kind of like a tease. I mean, we know she's been training, but the variant cover, um, with the 2 chupacabras on it for this one, and she's got
yeah,
the purple matador suit. Like,
yeah, yeah,
I know he doesn't want that for her, but I
yeah.
feel like she's going to be taking up that mantle.
Yeah, there's some surprises in the way that it plays out. I'm going to tell. So I always talk about the book, and I say it's about a matador who fights to make a better world for his daughter.
Yeah,
And to me, the monsters are a metaphor, right? There's and you're a parent, you're both parents, and when your kids are little, you want to protect them, you want to hide them for all,
yeah,
and that's the matador. But
yeah,
as the
one hundred
kid, but as
percent.
your kids get older, which Adelita, she's getting older, you find that you're less and less able to protect them from that. And at some point, you have to let them out into the world, and you can either continue to try to shelter them, or you can help them, you know, survive or whatever,
Yeah,
in the world. And that's ultimately, the story, and that's ultimately him and his kind of like, because he's this macho dude, right? He's like,
yeah,
these matadors are ultimate macho dudes, and that's a lot of the stuff that he struggles with, and the things that he's kind of like is that he wants to just protect his daughter from everything, but now she's like, no, I don't need you to, because she's almost a teenager, and she has attitude, and she's like, like any little kid, like every little kid, thinks that they're like tougher than anything, and
yeah,
they can,
yeah. I mean, at
so
the end, yeah,
and it's fun to play with that dynamic.
yeah. At the end, she is just a kid still. Like you said, she's
But
just a
but she
teenager.
is just a kid, and there's a scene in the fourth issue where she's acting all tough, but then like they go to bed at night, and she's like kind of all cuddled up in his, on his
Yes.
chest, because she's just a kid, and that's kind of the thing we try to get across, is that as much as she wants to be a fighter, she's still just a little kid, and as a father, you're trying to find that balance of like, how do I prepare her for the world that she's coming into, you
Yeah.
know so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, she's just one of the many characters that we've seen grown. I mean, we've seen Ramon have his flashbacks with his wife,
Right.
Lucia. And even we saw him for the first time facing fears. Who knew he was scared of
Yeah.
cockroaches?
So
He's
I'm scared.
Yeah.
I hate cockroaches. I grew up in Brooklyn, in an apartment, and I don't think there is an apartment building in Brooklyn that does not have cockroaches. Um, and my mother cleaned, like, it's not like it was, but like, man, as a kid, just cockroaches, just, so I thought I'd write this book, and I would overcome it would be
incorporate that.
cathartic.
It was
I
great
still, I
though.
still, I still hate that.
Uh, It's
I'm glad
There's
understandable.
nothing to
Ramon.
like about him.
Yeah, I'm
No.
glad Ramon could could figure it out. But
Yeah, that was a very surprising
Mhm.
plot line
Yeah,
because, and you see it early on in the book when the father and son are going through, and the father's like, oh, even the Monster Matador's got some fears, and then I was like,
right.
oh man, he really does.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean that Once Upon Some Monsters, like I feel like really we started getting a lot more character development in all these
mhm.
characters. I feel like the earlier arcs was very much like we were learning their morals
Right.
and like who they were as characters, but now we're getting their backstory
Yeah,
and it's really ramping up. Uh,
yeah. I
yeah,
felt, and
it's
I felt it was a weird thing. I felt like I had to earn that. I felt like I had to give the audience what they wanted first. I had to give them those big kaiju fights. I had to let them know that,
yeah,
like, yes, this is a kaiju book. We're going to be fighting monsters. We're gonna and yeah, with Once Upon Some Monsters, I felt like, okay, you're still gonna have kaiju, but now, like, we're gonna kind of like do a little more like character stuff. We're gonna get really deep into like who these people are, and
Yeah,
um,
it almost reminds me, so like I said, it's gritty western almost feels
mhm.
like, but it also has like a Walking Deadish vibe to it too.
Yeah,
Now with these, especially this arc, like the human characters are really getting a lot out of each person.
hmm.
Uh, it's just absolutely great. I mean, just that
Thank
we
you. Yeah,
can compare it to these things.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks. No, it's cool. It's crazy. I mean, to me, it's still crazy. Like, that we've gotten this far with it. I mean, I'm really happy because it's a quirky idea. I don't know. But
And
people seem to love it, and it
you
gets such
know,
a great reaction. So,
like I said, when the first time I saw Blake share it out, I was like,
mhm.
Monster Matador. I'm like, that sounds like an interesting concept. And then I'm just
Yeah,
reading it. But then I'm looking at the art and all the previous, and I'm like, wow, it's got a whole volume already. I'm like, it's starting this new arc, and
yeah,
the art looks incredible. The concept sounds great. I'm
mhm.
like, let's check it out. And yeah, like you said, up front, it sounds really quirky, but it is really good. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
it,
and we won an award.
yeah,
The the first volume won. We're a finalist for the 2024 International Latino Book Awards in the Best Graphic Novel category. And there's a ceremony October 19th where we'll get our award. So it'll be either
congrats.
gold, silver, or bronze. So
I hope it's
nice.
gold, man. I think
I hope
you
so. I don't know.
deserve it. I mean, it's a
I'll take
really,
anything.
yeah, you deserve
But
it,
no, it's
man.
cool. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I always rave. Even when we've talked to Blake and
Hmm.
Frankie B, and Matt from Kaijus and Cowboys,
Yeah,
I'm
it's a
like,
fun book. Yeah,
yes, that's a very fun book.
yeah,
I'm like, I don't know how you do it. Your turnaround times just like blow my mind because like campaign ends and it's like they're like maybe 3 to 4 weeks later. I'm like, how does he do it?
yeah. I mean, we have the books done in advance. Uh, Part of it is because Fabio sometimes he just needs work, and I'm like, so I gotta kind of fill
Yeah.
that hole, and that's kind of why we've been able to do it consistently. But I also I hate, like, um, with the Kickstarters. I know the last two we fulfilled really quick. We didn't do them
Incredibly
quick,
quick.
but
I
they
was
were
like,
really
what
quick.
the
Yeah.
hell?
But I just want to get them out of the. I just want to get them
No.
out of the house. I just want to, like, you know what I mean? Because it's like
Yeah.
it's a lot of. That's really the campaign has its own stresses,
Oh yeah.
but the after part is like I just want to get everyone their books and not have that hanging over my head, Um, so yeah, so we try to get it. We try
Yeah.
to get it out, and the printer's been great.
Yeah.
They've been turning around quickly. The last couple of times, yeah. I think the last one we had it. I think we shipped that one out within like 2 or 3 weeks or something, which is
It was
nuts. Yeah,
insane. I was like,
yeah,
what the hell?
yeah,
I was like, how do I have this already?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Your turnaround times because we've this is the last we've yeah fourth one's coming now, so this will be the
Right.
fourth campaign that I've supported.
Yeah, yeah.
But the be from all of them from the beginning, and you've got them all out in. How long has it been since you've been running in this? Has it been a full year yet that
For
you've
which
done
one?
this for the Once Upon Some Monsters? Has it been
Yeah. So the first number one launched during San Diego Comic Con of
last year?
23. So it's a little over a year
Yeah, it's
ago.
like a year and a quarter, and you got
Yeah.
in basically four campaigns
Yeah.
just about done. I mean,
Yeah.
you're
Which I
basically
said I
there
would.
with this one right now. I mean, by
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
time this is up, who knows? You could be funded tomorrow at this point.
Yeah. It's yeah. Oh man. So the thing I hate running campaigns during October, during September, October. It's the busiest time. It's the hardest time.
Yeah.
It's the most challenging time, and I really didn't want to do it this year. But I've literally been sitting on this book for like I think Fabio was done in May,
Wow.
so I've just been sitting on it, and um, the next eh, eh, opening will probably be Jan, and I'm like I don't want to sit on it for 6 months, because
Yeah.
we're doing the Monster Door book, which I got to pay for, so I need the money now, and then we're going to do the next one. It's like a constant thing of like
Yeah.
taking one
On
thing.
to yeah, you got to go on to the next one. So
So yeah,
yeah, so your next campaign is most likely going to be January. It
no,
sounds like. Oh, March.
March.
March. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah. We'll do March for the Luchadors,
All right.
and
All
then we'll
right.
do the big summer one. Um, and that'll be we're
Nice.
probably that one will probably be 48 pages. I think we're gonna do 2 issues at once.
All right.
Um,
And
uh,
who do you have doing colors? Is Alex coming back for colors for the
Yeah, Alex
Monstrador?
is doing. Yeah. Alex always does the colors.
No,
She
she
would
did.
probably fly up from or drive up from Mexico and find me and beat me up if I didn't let her do the colors of the book.
No, she.
She's great, and she loves the book. When she read, I didn't tell her with issue 4, and she got the script, and she didn't read it, and then she started getting the art, and she was like, "What the fuck did you do?"
Oh my! I'm telling you guys, this is gonna be
Yeah,
some cliffhanger.
yeah,
No, it's
yeah.
it,
She
I
was angry.
I
It's
can
funny.
imagine. She's
Yeah,
wait a minute.
yeah. You better tell me. You better tell me
Yeah,
what's going on.
yeah.
So.
yeah, and then I'm looking forward to seeing some of these characters. Like you said, you bring characters that you might have
Hmm.
had written in your original 12 issue run
Yeah.
that nobody's seen yet, really.
Yeah,
But
well, Nacho is one. So that whole
he
thing in the arena was
from that story.
from
All
that
right.
story. I'll have to just give those out in the Kickstarter. They were. It's a really weird, but I was drawing to my ability. And the beginning was the stories were very simplistic, and part of it is I have an origin story that I want to tell that is kind of different from the one that was told. But we did one. I think it was 3 issues where he goes to Santa Monica to fight a monster, and he's joined by all these actors who are in character, are fighting monsters in character. So you've got like Schwarzenegger from Predator, Stallone's, dressed like the Expendables. Everyone's and they're all just like, and Harrison Ford is like a senile old pilot, and he's got his pet dog who he thinks is George Lucas. Um, and the Matador needs a pilot, and he goes out there in like Arizona. He goes out in the middle of the desert to this like hole in the wall cantina, and he finds Harrison Ford.
That's
And it
amazing.
and it turns out just like he can't. He always crashes his helicopter,
Yes.
and they end up in Malibu. And like they get attacked by a naked Mel Gibson
This is
who's
amazing.
who's looking for redemption. So yeah, I'll have to.
Yeah.
Now
The,
I
the,
will definitely have to
this
give
is
those.
something like you did the Darkest Night. That Darkest Night was
Oh
hysterical.
yeah,
This sounds sort of like that
yeah. It's sort of so it
with
came.
all the different
I guess I
Batmans.
came. Yeah.
characters staying in character.
The
That
Batman the Batman thing was funny. So that was Ryland and I were just uh Ryland Grant and I were just uh messing around and I said, wouldn't it be funny if because I had done there was a Christian Bale piece where he's basically paralyzed and he's on a rooftop and he's like, oh, I can't do anything to save my city, and so this is the flashback from that, and it's just like, wouldn't it be fun if we told this story? And I wound up, we wrote the script together, and I drew it, and his colorist that does all his books colored it. It was fun. I mean, it's like 10 pages,
it
and,
came
and
out
we
great.
yeah, we give those out on Kickstarter, every other Kickstarter, so we'll give it out.
You should do another one like that with this whole with the whole San Diego thing as a little
We
side
had
gig.
so I've got another one that is like it's written. I never had the time to draw it.
It's so funny, man.
So yeah, that it's a whole like yeah, there's a whole bunch of
Yeah, and then I noticed when I was looking through Volume 1 again today that there was those covers with like the worm-like thing that was in this last in
oh yeah
issue
yeah
3.
so
So I was like,
that
oh,
yeah so
because
that
that was
yeah
part of his flashback. I was like,
right
this is really cool. I'm like, so it's almost like a concept. Because
hmm
the one cover, the worm is just like arched the same way, but
yeah
it
yeah
looks sort
yeah
of more like snaky
yeah
in that concept. I was like, wow. I was like, how did I not notice this?
yeah Fabio did a really cool worm.
Yeah.
His design was much better than mine.
No, it was so cool though. I
Yeah, it was cool.
mean,
I had this thing when I was doing it. I would give the worm had a nose ring or something. I would do all these like little
yes.
things like that on the monsters. Just, I don't know why.
We'll give him a
Uh,
septum ring, like a
yeah,
ball.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
a,
yeah. So
yeah.
kind of yeah. It was. Well, that's what it was. It was kind of
Yeah.
like when you see the bulls with the ring. So it was.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing this Maggie character that he's going
mhm.
all out to save. I'm really looking forward to seeing more of what she's about now.
Yeah, yeah,
That like he's like, all right, I'm gonna drop everything, and like this sort of launched like the second half of this Once Upon Some Monsters story arc, and
right,
it's gonna be carrying it over into the next story arc.
right.
Uh, so, can you give us any hints about her? Or
She's so they they fought that giant worm together,
yeah.
and he they were friends, and he's going to save her. I don't
Were they
they're
more
not
than
lovers. No,
friends?
no, no.
No, they're
Yeah,
not.
no,
Because I
no,
know
they're
he
not
sort of
lovers.
had that thing with Kalisha
Kalisha, yeah,
In
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Afropocalypse. I'm like, was it a similar tension like that, or were they kind of like she's just like a really good friend? All right,
Yeah,
so
she's just a really good friend, but she has a sister
okay.
who was hitting on him the whole time.
Oh, all right.
And then the sister had a boyfriend. And there's like a triangle, and it's all this weird.
Oh,
You
that's
gotta throw these up on your website
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah,
people
yeah.
can just buy like buy the
Just
No, no,
digitals or
I'll
something.
give him. I'll give him out. I'll give him out, or
yeah,
I'll definitely
that would
send
be a
it
cool like
to you
little
guys.
stretch goal to do for the campaigns. Maybe
Yeah,
like, all
that's
right,
what I was.
I'm gonna leak pre Monster Matador concepts,
Yeah,
something
yeah,
like that.
that was kind of like the goal is to do do it as a stretch goal,
Yeah.
one that will hit. I hope. um,
I
but
think it
yeah,
will. I mean, your
yeah.
campaigns to me have been doing fantastic.
Thanks. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
it's yeah. We've been. It's. I feel like we hit our stride with Once Upon Some Monsters. I feel like too with Kickstarter, it's uh, now that we've done 9 campaigns, people know that they're going to get their book. you
Oh
know,
yeah, and
Yeah,
they're gonna get
that's
them
um,
always
fast.
you're going to get your book. You're going to get the full story. It's not going to be, and it's not going to be years between issues. It's Kickstarter's tough. I get it. It's like I said, we've been really lucky that we've been able to kind of keep this consistency and tell the stories that that we've been able to tell. And now that we're telling this larger story, now that we're kind of settled in, and I feel like we've got the audience, and we can do that. I don't have to worry about like, oh, am I really going to be able to do X amount of issues or whatever, um, because not a lot of creators do or can't.
Yeah,
It's hard. I mean, making comics is it's really
it's
really
not.
hard,
Yeah,
and there's just so many variables, and
yeah,
it's a lot of work. So
yeah.
it's
It's a
pretty
lot of
cool to
moving
have gotten
pieces
this
too.
far. Yeah,
Oh,
a lot.
absolutely.
Yeah, and yeah, and as a kid, like it's crazy. You're basically a publisher, you're a writer, you're whatever. You just wearing
Your
all the hats.
your packaging, I'm
You're
sure. It's
packaging everything,
yeah,
having
you're a
my life
warehouse
yell at me.
worker. Yeah.
Why are all these boxes in that? That's the other reason why I
Yeah.
got to get them out so quick, is because I get yelled. Why are all these boxes here? She's like, these are going to be gone tomorrow, right? I'm like, maybe in like a couple of days. I don't know.
If you help me, right?
Yeah, yeah. My kids want to help, but I'm like, no. I think they're 6 and 8. They're not quite at the
Oh
age
yeah,
where they
yeah.
can handle the comics without getting some kind of grease or something on it.
Yeah.
No, but it's like I said, it's amazing. Your turnaround time. Is there? I know, like I said, I was talking earlier. You support a ton of projects on Kickstarter. Is there any series that just you go back to as a fan, Kickstarter, or just even mainstream? Are you big? I mean, you support a ton of comics. So.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, Ryland is one of my favorite writers, and he's a friend, but he's such a good writer. He has a book called The Breach, which just launched today, and I read the advance of it, and it's so good. Territory, Blake McCarthy, launching tomorrow.
Yes.
I love that book, and it's such a unique take on the whole kaiju
Yes.
genre. It's a really smart book, and I'm really happy for him that he's again that he's reached that. Now this is going to wrap up the story.
Yeah.
It's issue 5, and that's always awesome when a creator gets to do that.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yeah.
then White Ash, which is Charlie Stickney, is a fantastic book. I've been digging Kaijus and Cowboys. I found that one from you guys, actually.
Oh, nice.
But
I'm
they've been on
glad.
Kickstarter a while. I mean, it's the thing. There's so many projects. It's so like so much of it too is being able to have that consistency, because like
Yes.
people might not know until issue 4 that you even exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, I picked up this one of these indie books that I picked up. I came in the mail a day or two ago. It's called Fennec. It's
Okay.
another like henshin hero kaiju book. I had no clue about it. I was just
Yeah.
randomly browsing because I always like almost every day on Kickstarter type in kaiju or monsters, and I just search to
Yeah.
see what's there. This one somehow was buried, and it was
Okay.
funded, and I got it like in the last 12 hours. I'm like, this looks pretty cool. It's like a henshin 18 and over sort of horror kaiju book. It was like a volume one. They were doing. They'd apparently done issues 1, 2, and 3, and they were doing 4 and 5 to finish it off.
Okay.
But I just got that in the mail today. It looks like a pretty cool book, but I'm like, there's so many of these projects out there that just they don't get the attention or they just get buried.
It's hard. I
And
mean, Kickstarter, I haven't checked, but I'm assuming there's 300 plus projects on there at the moment. Um,
yeah,
it's
Uh,
been, I know for a lot of newer books, it's been really tough, just because there are so many projects. Projects like mine, because we've been on the platform for so long, um, it's still hard,
yeah,
but you're kind of like, um, uh,
you got to self promote is what it comes is a lot of the time what
yeah.
it comes down to. I mean, we've seen a couple of projects that just not make it, and we're like, oh man, that stinks. It's just gonna. So they kind of just came out and they just
Yeah.
But then
I
now
see.
they're like, all right, we'll go back to it. We'll self promote a little. We'll try to build an audience before we could even put anything out. That's the
Yeah,
hard part.
it's really hard. Yeah, it's really hard. It's that's the hardest. That's really the hardest thing.
Yeah.
And also, Kickstarter is a numbers game. Okay, and you really have to understand. And I think people go into it. Um, I have to raise $5,000. I have to raise $10,000, whatever. Okay, but if you want to raise $10,000, it's averages, right? What's your average backer going? You know,
Yeah.
and that's all based on what your initial, what your singles are, what your whatever. So, Monster Matador is it's $12, right? And so we have usually last campaign we had around 177, 78 backers or so. So, averages somewhere between $20 and $25,
Yeah.
overall. Um, so that's, so now when you put that into perspective, say, well, it's just for easy, $20, say your average is $20, 200 backers is $4,000, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people too, they go, okay, well, I got to raise 10,000. But realistically, if you're not coming in with a giant audience, if you're not, or you don't have like a mainstream, if you're not like a Marvel book and coming onto the
Yeah.
platform, if you get 100 backers, that's amazing, right?
No, it is.
If you're between 100 and 200 backers, that's fantastic. So if you can, now you have to look at it and go, well, what's the average amount, that people are gonna spend?
Hey.
What
Yeah.
rewards do I have? Because really, if it's not $20, it's not $30, $40, that's going to impact how you make your goal. And I see campaigns all the time like that, where they're asking for this, and then you're looking at their structure,
Yeah.
and you're like, well, you're never going to hit that unless you get 400 backers.
Yeah.
And unless you're bringing 400 backers, it's going to be really, really hard,
Or you get some whale backer that's like, all right, here's $500.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna
yeah, yeah,
buy
yeah,
everything.
yeah.
But
But I always tell people, like, especially for their first one is just kind of like, just get in there, build, and that's where you're really going to start building your audience.
yeah.
That way, once you do the first one, you get a sense. Like, I've done 9 now, and there's a pattern to everything, and I know who's going to back up front. I know who's going to back in the last 2 weeks. I know who's going to back on the last day. Okay,
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
it's
That
literally, it doesn't
yeah,
change. I mean,
that's really
sometimes,
what it is. Yeah, there's always like a ton of people first day, middle,
yeah,
slow, 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 and then last day, last 2 days, these
yeah,
campaigns explode all of a sudden again.
yeah. And but I have backers who back me from the first campaign, and they still back on like the second to last day or something like that.
And they don't pull
You
the
know,
money out until it
until
ends.
then, and
So
yeah, yeah,
it,
but yeah, yeah, but I mean, it doesn't drive me nuts, but like, it's a weird thing. But you kind of go, why can't you just do it on day
yeah,
one?
because just the anxiety of, I'm sure
But
you
yeah,
still
yeah, yeah,
constantly refreshing. You're like, how many do I have now? What am I
yeah,
at?
yeah, yeah.
Right?
But I know, just having done it, I pretty much know where we're gonna end up at the end of it. Also, right now, uh, digital has been a big thing. So people are going more digital than they are physical. So
Really?
you have
Okay.
to, you have to adjust for those things when you're
Yeah.
looking at your numbers and your goals and things like that. We always set for $3,000, which is, that's kind of like the bare minimum. We do conventions and things like that, which we make up a lot of it. One of these days, I will get out to Kaiju Brooklyn. I would love.
Oh,
I
that would
need
be
to do.
that would
awesome.
Yeah.
be
Yeah,
Um,
when especially since you grew up in Brooklyn,
yeah. 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 Yeah.
it'd be like a
Yeah.
homecoming.
Yeah.
I'm sure they would love to have you too.
Yeah. Um,
And it's
so
great that they have that here finally.
yeah, it's so cool. It looked like a really cool show.
Yeah, it was a fun time, and I think the plan is to make it even bigger next time around. I mean, it was big this time,
Right.
but first time it was just like the market. This time they did
Hmm.
panels. They're doing a Godzilla screening in November. It's not really a convention, but they're doing like a little market that's free, so you can do the
Right.
market if you didn't get your tickets, which
Hmm.
they sold out, which is really cool. And
That's cool.
and then I'm sure that's like Kaiju 2.5, I guess, and then there'll be a
Okay.
third one eventually. But it was at a cool venue. It's like
Hmm.
I don't know how to describe it. Like it used to be a
It's like
couple of city blocks of
yeah.
warehouses
Yeah, it's
that
like a
they
Okay.
pedestrianized warehouse area.
Oh,
yeah
okay.
So
That's cool.
like there's a couple like streets that do run it out, but for the most part you're like walking in between buildings and there's like
Uh,
courtyards and stuff.
that's
There's
interesting.
like
Yeah,
a very open convention.
that's cool.
yeah. It was very different. It was cool though.
Yeah, yeah,
It was a very cool convention. But yeah,
yeah,
you should definitely check that out if you because I've seen you. You've done a lot of conventions. I saw you did San Diego Comic Con
yeah.
and a few others.
Yeah, we did. I did like 5 or 6 last year. I do a lot in Southern California. It's just it's the
Yeah,
travel stuff with kids is hard, but
yeah. Oh yeah, I
I
know.
know.
so
It's
I'm trying to
Yeah,
figure it out.
you said 8
But
and 6, right?
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have a 5 and a 2-year-old, so I can only imagine what 8 and 6 is like.
yeah. Oh, I remember those days.
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
I sleep a little more now.
Oh, that's
I
good.
still get
Yeah,
woken up at 5:45 on the weekends.
yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah,
every
yeah,
day,
Yes.
yeah.
and they'll sleep in on Mondays, no problem. When I'm already
Right,
up for work.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know. I had the weirdest thing on Saturday. Like I got a notification on my watch that said you hit your sleep goal, and I was like, I've never gotten this notification before. And then I was like, well, how long is my sleep goal? Because I don't even remember setting it, and it was like 6 hours. And I was like, oh my god, I'm not even getting that every night.
God,
Oh,
it's funny.
Yeah, that's life, though. I mean, even when we were talking Blake previously, we were like, just
Hmm.
life happens, man. I
Yeah, yeah,
mean, things happen. I mean, you even wrote it at the beginning of the book with how you started in 2007 with the idea, and life
right.
happens, and you just couldn't get things done until
Yeah,
now.
yeah. But
It's
it worked. I mean, but it
yeah,
worked out
it worked
because
out great.
it wouldn't have had Fabio, wouldn't have been Alex, and I really can't think of a better team
Yeah. How
for
did you
this.
find
So
Alex? Actually, I know you said you found her on Instagram in like the
yeah,
volume 1, but you just kind of just stumbled on her.
yeah. I specifically wanted a colorist from Mexico,
All right.
um, and I just typed in Mexican colorist,
Wow.
and I scrolled through a lot, and hers just jumped out at me. Um, But what jumped out at me, and I've told her this, is that Fabio at the time of the first issue, who's drawing a little bit differently. I forget what the technique is called, but a lot of the structure, the shading, and stuff like the structure of
The
angles and
faces.
things
Yeah.
is implied. So I needed a colorist that kind of understood shapes, right, and that kind of stuff. Um, and she had pictures of sculptures that she made. So I thought, well, if she does sculptures, then she understands
The shapes. Yeah.
lighting and things like that, and she'll be able to kind of see what Fabio is going for and what he was doing. So that's it. Yeah. So that's how I found her,
That's
and
pretty impressive.
yeah,
And she was like, yeah, she your first one that you got? Like it was just like boom, like that. You just
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. She was great, and she's just she's so talented, and what I love about her is that like Fabio keeps changing up. Like for Afropocalypse, he kind of changed up his drawing style a little bit. He did it a little bit more like Bill Sienkiewicz, Jay Lee kind of style, just to kind of and for that, like she had to completely learn a whole different style of coloring. And she did, and she did a fantastic job, and she's up for just any challenge, and she loves coloring, she loves doing it, and she loves learning, and that's like the best thing for any kind of artist because she's constantly growing and she's constantly pushing herself.
Yeah.
And Monster Matador is kind of the book where I just kind of like let her do
Her thing.
what I kind of
Yeah.
let her do her thing, and she
Yeah.
and yeah, I get you get great stuff out of that because she's really um, uh, you're not trying to box her into into something.
Yeah,
And she's always looking for new ways to do things or
yeah. No,
so
that's a great thing about the artist
mhm.
community too. I mean,
Yeah,
that's one of my favorite things that, like, about just not even just the fandom and just in general about social media is
right.
following artists. I love looking at all different
Yeah, it's
artists'
really
work,
cool. Yeah.
and just the kaiju community alone has a ton of artists. But I mean, I just look at so many different comic book artists
Hmm.
now. I don't know. She's got a YouTube channel where occasionally she'll do like some live streams and do some coloring and
Oh, right.
uh,
Yeah.
stuff like that. I've seen a couple of those videos. She's
Hmm.
incredible, and just like you said, like, she changes with Fabio's work, and it's just crazy. Just, especially when you follow artists for so long, you just see their style change and their work improve, and just different. They just do different things, and it's really incredible just seeing that over years, just following artists like that.
Yeah, it's cool. It's funny because every time we do a new story, Fabio's like, I'm just gonna draw it this way. I'm like, but he draw. It's fun. It's cool because he kind of draws it to fit the tone of the story. So it's kind of
Yeah,
it,
it really
yeah.
does.
But yeah, it always it always drives me nuts at the beginning because I'm like, oh, I just got so used to this, and now you're doing this.
But it still
So
flows really nicely, because there are
yeah, it
sometimes
does.
where
Yeah, yeah.
when you like read a comic series, when sometimes the change is like so drastic, you're like,
Yeah, yeah,
whoa, this
yeah,
is going to
yeah.
take me like a few pages or like an issue or two to adjust
Hmm.
to. But it still flows, especially
Yeah.
having both the same artist and colorist, even though styles change, that they
Hmm.
still kind of complement each other
Right.
the same way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Uh, but yeah, they're fun. They're really fun to work with. So
Yeah, and I mean, we're absolutely looking forward to the future of the
cool.
series. I mean, yeah, Dan, did you have any other questions or anything?
No, I've it's been great talking, and
Yeah,
I guess just if you want to just like plug everything that you have, it's.
yeah, yeah.
Well,
I
it's
yeah.
I would
Monster
mention that you
Matador.
do have a website that like
I
I don't understand why most people don't have a website where you can buy those
yeah,
series.
yeah.
yeah,
Monstermatador.com. Um, we have the first volume up there. I haven't put Once
yes,
Upon Some Monsters up there. I tend to wait until the Kickstarters a little bit after the Kickstarters because
yeah,
I don't want people. Um,
it's a great
uh,
website.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
I did not design it. I did
R-
not have anything to do. Uh,
oh,
someone did it.
that's a
Someone did it
great
for me. Yeah.
that's a great idea, and it's really well made. I, like Dan said, I wish more indie comics, like, once they get that
I don't know. I
success,
don't know why.
just make a storefront. Sometimes, I'm like, this could be a little extra revenue. I mean,
Hmm.
just in between campaigns, just to get it
Yeah, but
going.
it's also just a nice landing point where you can
Yeah,
kind of So we're Monster Matador everywhere.
yeah, and we'll plug it all down below too.
X, Facebook, uh, X. I said X now.
Yeah,
Um,
Twitter, whatever you want to call it.
yeah, every time I've been saying Twitter lately, people are like correcting me and saying X. So that's right. Anyway, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram. It's Monster Matador. That's the other reason why you should get a website is because
yeah,
you have a name, like
yeah,
lock it
yeah. It's
down.
there.
I have a friend who he buys, like, he's all into that whole thing of buying websites and names and whatever. And I'm like, oh, I better get this before he buys it and tries to sell it to me because
You want to buy the website for your
but
comic?
but this is no, because I talked to him about this and he's like, this is what a lot of people they do is they'll just scour the internet for things. So and then they'll just buy the website name in the hopes that that
Somebody
person
wants to
will come
buy it.
along and be like, yeah. So I'm locked down on Monster Matador, uh, everywhere. So
Awesome. Yeah. We'll
yeah,
be linking that up down below. Look out for the issue 4 campaign live now. Hop on that. Do not miss out. And as we just saw here, it is coming back with the Lucha spinoff, Mo-
Monstradors.
Monstradors.
Yeah, and that book is at like 4 names. I think this is going to be the
I like that one. I like
final
that
name.
No,
one.
I think it's I think it's good.
And that was such a cool concept, and just
Yeah,
cast of characters that we got to see a nice amount of, but now we're gonna get to see like a lot of them, which is
yeah,
what I'm really
we didn't
excited
get a chance.
about.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to really dig into them. The designs that for those were really cool. One
Yeah,
thing, like Fabio did kind of like for the doc. His name, the leader is called Doctor Destructor, and he's
Yes,
a
which I
luchador and the doctor because
yeah,
when they get hurt.
that's what I thought was hilarious because I was
Yeah,
like, when I saw Doctor Destructor, I'm like, oh, obviously it's like a Doctor Wagner
yeah,
Jr.,
yeah,
Blue Devil inspired
yeah, yeah, yeah,
luchador, and then he's like, I'm actually a doctor.
yeah. And then
amazing.
yeah, we have there's the fire breathing guy and Senorita Sangre is
Yes,
fun.
yeah, right there.
So yeah, we're gonna dig into their whole we're gonna dig into that whole kind of those characters and that mythology a little more, and hopefully we'll be able to spin off some more from that because I've got a lot of ideas for them too. So
Yeah, and I love your idea so far, man. You've
yeah,
done incredible.
thanks, thank you. I
Oh
think you
man, I
froze.
think he just crossed the end.
That's all right.
All right. Well, thank you for coming over. Again, we really appreciate your time, and
Yeah,
we're gonna have everything linked down below, and
awesome.
people can go over and support the campaign.
Thank you. Great to talk to you guys.
All right. See ya.